All right, so it is 6 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and welcome to our first installment of Citizen Science for the summer of 2021. So let's try to start off here looking at just observations from the state of South Carolina. So I'm going to share this screen. Let's see here. All right, so you should see iNaturalist from the state of South Carolina. And this is just people who have made observations of plants in the month of April. And you see there's only 62 people, 62 observers from the state of South Carolina. And there's 118 species. I'm just going to look at a few of these. And I'm primarily going to focus on native plants. You can see right here this rattlesnake, hawkweed. This is pretty common. In fact, I think there's some of these growing behind the museum, but they weren't planted. They're volunteers. And see, this was taken down near the Congaree National Park, St. Matthews is where this one came from. All right, and we got some other good stuff. Like here's a nice wake robin. This is one of our trilliums. And it may be hard for you to find these. Our trilliums are pretty specific about where they live, and there's so many different species. And oftentimes they just live in one area. Looks like this one was taken down there McCormick County, because there's a Lake Thurman, Clark Hill. You can see how iNaturalist gives you the opportunity to look at plants from all over the state. Like here's another trillium, the Relic Trillium. Oh, nice shooting stars. Let's see, where was this taken? Okay, this is also at Clark Hill. Might even be the same person. You can see they have their username there. If we got anything else really neat, they really, yeah, that's the same person. They really found found a good spot to find some trilliums. And this is nice. The Coreopsis. We have some of these blooming behind the Museum of York County right now. See, where was this? This was taken somewhere close to Charleston. And you know, it's a Coreopsis. You know, it looks like a daisy. Yep. But if you look at the tip here, it's kind of ragged. And that usually tells you that it's going to be one of the Coreopsis species. Let's see, what else have we got? Here's a Cherokee Rose, which is a pretty flower, but it is not from this country. It's from Europe. It's ironic it's called Cherokee Rose because it wasn't here a long time ago. So it has nothing to do with the Cherokee. Oh, and here's a nice one. This the red Buckeye. I'm going to show you a video in a few minutes that I made at behind the Museum of York County. This is going to be one of the species that we talk about in the video. Oh, here's a spiderwort. And you may see this scattered around. It usually likes wetter areas, but you'll be surprised. It'll show up in your yard sometime. Let's see, this is from somewhere near Lake Murray in Lexington. But it's got a nice little pretty flower. And I can't remember why it's called the spiderwort. But it's a pretty neat plant there. Tradescania is the genus. One thing you may notice on here, when you get a really high quality picture, it will say research grade, like right here for the Cherokee Rose, it's research grade. Let's see what else have we got. It's one of our rhododendrons. It's probably the Pinkster rhododendron, Pinkster Azalea. It's hard to say. These things are really hard to tell apart, and oftentimes you have to have a flower and look at the hair on the flower to know what species you have. Otherwise, they a lot of them look pretty similar. Here's another one here. This is Crested. They got that identified down to species. Let's see where this is taken. Probably in the, okay, just north of the Congaree National Park. Okay, see if there's anything else to highlight on here. And then we'll look at just the submissions for our project. There's the Redbud. You probably saw those blooming, but they are gone now. Many of these are gone now. Let's see here. Anything? Not seeing a whole lot that's real exciting. You know, there's that bloodroot. It hadn't bloomed yet. It has really nice flowers when it blooms. Okay, we'll check the next page and then I'll go to our project and see what we got there. Oh, serviceberry. This is a tree that blooms that's not real common, but it's native. I mean, if you can get one of these and plant it in your yard, I mean, they're really pretty and they don't get real big. Okay, this was taken in Jones Gap State Park. That doesn't surprise me. It's a little more common in the mountainous areas, but it's real pretty flower. It's just usually a small tree. It's called serviceberry or a shad bush because it blooms when the shad used to be moving up the river. Of course, the shad don't do that very often anymore because we dammed up the rivers. All right, so now let's go to the project that we've been working on here for the museum. Let's see what we got. All right, so we have a number of flowers. Well, there's the flame azalea. That's really nice. And there's several species called flame azalea. And this is probably the right species. Hard to say without having a flower to really key it out. And this is from Black Mountain. So it probably is that species because this species is the one you find more often in the mountains. Now you get into Piedmont, there are other orange azaleas. Okay. Let me see, I can say view all here. What do we got? Nice butterfly on the creeping phlox. And I'm pretty sure that is not a native phlox. We have plenty of native phlox around. Oh, nice primrose. Okay, this is one of our tulips, but it's one of those that you buy at the store and plant in your yard. We really don't have any native tulips around here. Now this is a species that is relatively common early in the spring, and it's a chickweed. It has these tiny flowers. Now there's and this is the one that's not native. And we do have native chickweeds, and they grow out in the forest, have a similar kind of flower. Kind of inconspicuous. You got to look for that. A lot of these early spring flowers are inconspicuous. Okay, we got the iris here. Let me try to blow this up. And you can see, well, it's kind of hard to see, but right there And that little crest is kind of frilly. And that besides the small size, this being about 6 inches tall, that tells you that it's the dwarf crested iris because it looks kind of frilly right there. Hard to see in this picture, but that is the case. All right, so what other cool stuff we got? Trying to focus on natives. Now this is a nice flower. People normally don't notice it because it's kind of small, but it just has this nice little yellow flower. The Virginia dwarf dandelion, but it's not a dandelion. It's not related to the one that grows in your yard. But we call it that. That's why common names are not great because they're confusing. And let's see what else we got here. Now, this Fleabane is pretty nice. Okay, this is one of those flowers that is kind of inconspicuous. They'll be all over the place, and this is one of the natives, and you can see an insect on there. So they're pretty common right now, and they'll bloom until about June, and then they'll be done. Okay, this mock orange is beautiful. Too bad it's not native. Oh, nice Columbine. And this is going to be in the video we're gonna watch also. But this genus name right here, it means eagle claw. I'm going to talk about this in the video, but if you look at the flower from you get real close, especially if you look at it from the bottom, it kind of looks like an eagle's claw, and that's where the name comes from. All right. Then about to the bottom of the project's page. Oh, now here's euonymus. This, hearts of bursting. You've probably heard of that before. You've probably seen the fruit before because it's really really bright and beautiful. But this is a little flower. It's just very inconspicuous. All right. Okay, we've got several people put the sweet shrub in there because that's a great flower, and it smells good. It kind of reminds me of persimmon. But it's called sweet shrub for a reason. Okay, so I want to show the video that I made of just spring flowers that were blooming behind Museum of York County. So I guess I will get Olivia to start that for us. Let me stop sharing. All right, so here we have green and gold. It's called green and gold because you have this great contrast between this really bright yellow flower and the green leaves. And it spreads and forms mats on the ground and in moist, shady areas throughout South Carolina. And it blooms from March till June. All right, next we have Marsh Marigold, which is not a great name for it because it is not a marigold. It's actually one of the buttercups. And this grows in moist areas, really prefers very wet areas, and it spreads also by a rhizome, which is an underground stem. They'll do pretty well in full sun. And the marsh marigold can be mixed up with the fig buttercup, which is invasive, but marsh marigold has leaves that are more heart-shaped. Here we have the yellow violet, sometimes called the heartleaf or spearleaf violet by the shape of the leaves because it's kind of spear-shaped.
You find this in rich, moist areas, and it's got that nice yellow flower. Now here we have Trout Lily, one of our very early bloomers. And by late spring, they're going to be dormant. And they have these single flowers that are usually kind of yellowish, almost remind me of a shooting star, the way they're shaped, and they're solitary. And the Trout Lily will spread and form nice matted area, not good ground cover. They're called Trout Lilies because somebody thought that the leaves, which are mottled looking, reminded them of a trout underneath the water in a stream. All right, next we have the Dwarf Crested Iris. This is one of our smaller irises. It's pretty short, usually 6 inches is about as tall as it's going to get. Makes a nice ground cover, and it blooms early in the spring. And it has a nice little crest on it, and you can see that. It's kind of a frilly looking crest. All right, next we have little brown jugs, sometimes called wild ginger. And it's a really unique plant. It's always low growing. It can kind of spread. And it has leaves that are kind of heart-shaped, and they're green with some of these white splotches. But what's really cool about it is the flower, because the flower is kind of urn-shaped, and that's why it's called little brown jugs, because it looks like a jug. And it's pollinated by ants and other ground-crawling insects, which is pretty cool. And in the past, the root has been used for flavoring by Native Americans, thus the name wild ginger. And this is the Jack of the Pulpit. And it has green trifoliate leaves, but most people don't pay attention to the leaves because they're focused on this really unique flower that has these kind of white and purple stripes, and it has modified leaves, and it looks like you have a person standing in a pulpit. And the Jack, which is in the pulpit there, that's a spadix, which is a modified leaf. And at the base of it is going to be the flowers. All right, so here we have our violet wood sorrel. And this is a low-growing plant. Some people think this is clover because it has trifoliate leaves, but it's not. If you flip the leaves over, they're purplish on the back, and the flower is kind of a purplish violet color. The leaves are kind of unique in that they fold up when the sun goes down. And now we have Spring Beauty, Claytonia virginiana, which is a really small, kind of inconspicuous plant. And the leaves are actually kind of grass-like, but they're one of our first bloomers in the spring, and they bloom from March to May. One thing that's unique about the Spring Beauty is that at night and on cloudy days, the flowers will close. Okay, next we have the red Columbine, really unique flower because it actually points downwards. So the stamens and the pistils, the reproductive parts, they point downwards. And the scientific name, it actually refers to an eagle's claw. If you look at the shape of it, if you use your imagination, it kind of reminds you of those talons that are coming down on their prey. And this flower attracts hummingbirds and bees and butterflies. And you always find it in moisture areas in the spring. Here we have the red Buckeye. This is really unique because it has palmate leaves. Each leaf has 5 leaflets, which makes it look kind of like a hand with fingers there. Has these nice red tubular flowers that you see early in the spring, which are going to attract hummingbirds and other bees. And but the shoots and the fruit produces these nice little nut-like structures that people put in their pockets, and they call it a Buckeye, and it's for good luck. But ironically, it is poisonous. Next, we have the Adam and Eve Orchid, also called the putty root. This is pretty unique. It's a flower that only blooms in May after its leaves have died. All right, so here we have the Pinkster Azalea. It's one of our native azaleas, but unlike the azaleas you often plant in your yard, they are deciduous, so they're going to lose their leaves, and they put their leaves back on in the spring. Has these nice kind of white to pink flowers that attract hummingbirds and swallowtail butterflies, but all parts of the plant are poisonous. And azaleas are actually rhododendrons, and rhododendron means rose tree in Latin. Here we have Oconee bells with these nice rounded green leaves, which turn kind of brown in the winter, but then they're present all winter. They're a very rare tri-state flower. in that it's only found where Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina come together near streams. Leaves are evergreen, has a flower with nice pointed petals, and this was discovered in 1788, but then nobody could find it again for 100 years. Okay, now here we have Hepatica, or round leaf liverleaf. And if you look at the leaf and use your imagination, it somewhat reminds you of a liver. That's why it's called liver leaf. And it was used by early settlers as a tonic for the liver. It was a very common thing in the past that if a plant looked like an organ, then you could use that plant to treat illnesses of that organ. This blooms early in the spring, right before the leaves come out on the trees, has these nice kind of pinkish flowers, has evergreen leaves that are found there all winter, and it attracts sweat bees and flies as pollinators. Here we have our native honeysuckle. This the coral honeysuckle has these beautiful, brilliant scarlet red flowers that you see in the springtime. And right below the flower, the two leaves that are typically separate kind of merge. And this is a favorite of the hummingbird because it blooms early in the spring and it's red and it's going to attract the hummingbirds. Here we have the South Carolina state flower, the yellow jessamine. You know, this is the early spring bloomer. It has this vine that is evergreen. It's nice and beautiful all winter. Flowers smell really great. It's kind of like a cherry Kool-Aid smell almost. Now this is a beautiful flower, but it is poisonous. All parts of the flower are poisonous, so it's important not to consume it. Some people can confuse this with a honeysuckle, but you cannot consume the nectar of yellow jessamine.
All right. All right, so I guess right now I will announce the winner of the photo contest. And our panel of judges have chosen, let me find it here, chosen the Fleabane. The Fleabane is the winner for April. So this picture will be displayed in the museum. It'll be later on in the fall, most likely. So we'll have this displayed. And if you want your name on it, then you need to let us know who you are, because all this stuff on iNaturalist doesn't have your names most of the time. But that is the winner for this month. Now next month, we're not going to do plants. We're going to do birds. So get out there and start taking pictures of birds. No, it's a lot harder than the plants because they don't sit still for you. Well, let's see, we got some can I screen share the winning? Oh yeah, I'll do that. I mean, you can't see everything I can see perfectly. All right, where is that? There we go, and let me share. Okay, well, let me share now. There we go. Okay, you can see it right here. And this is kind of cool because we got the flower and we got insect. Insect is going to be our June topic. But nice flower there. Flower that a lot of people just ignore. These will be growing on the side of the road or beside the sidewalk, and they just get ignored, which is unfortunate because they're really nice flowers. All right. How many types of sunflowers grow in South Carolina? That's one of our questions. That is a loaded question because then you have to define what is a sunflower, because the name sunflower is used for so many different plants. For the Helianthus genus, which is the genus sunflowers belong to, there are about 8 in South Carolina. Let's see here. So does anybody else have any questions? You can type it in the chat, or I can allow you to talk if I see you light up here. Okay. Okay, Doreen, go ahead. Talk to me.
Okay, so you mentioned that there were a lot of different types of Trillium. So right in South Carolina, there would be a lot of different types. And if so, like on iNaturalist, can I go in and just search for a flower type like that to see if I can find anything that matches?
Yes, you can. You can, but Trilliums are really tricky. And oftentimes it's something inside the flower that makes it a different species. So sometimes it's really hard to tell just by looking at a picture. And Trilliums really drive me crazy because every time I turn around, they've found a new species. But that's just how science goes. But yeah, you should be able to at least narrow it down using iNaturalist.
Okay.
Is Star of Bethlehem native? No, it is not. It is from Europe. In some places, as common as it is, you would think it was native. Are there any native seed banks in York County? Not really. Now, the Native Plant Society is talking about the one that's associated with this part of South Carolina. We've talked about trying to have a plant sale. And if we do that, then we're going to have to get a native seed bank. But right now, I'm not aware of one. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, go ahead, Angela. You should be able to, I think you're muted, Angela.
I was. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There is a native violet, correct? That grows around here.
There are several native violets, yes.
When do they bloom?
A lot of them are blooming now. There's a purple one that's blooming now.
Okay, I was wondering because I have a purple flower that grows. I need to get down there and take a picture and ask you about it then. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, well, my email is rcarter@chmuseums.org. So if you have any plant questions, feel free to email me. I'm always excited about new plant questions. So I guess if there are no more questions, we're gonna come to an end here. Now next month is birds, and I have a guest lined up from the South Carolina Wildlife Federation that's going to come and talk with us. I mean, I love birds, but I figured you probably want to hear somebody talk besides just me all the time. So I got somebody who is supposed to help me out with that. All right, so the the person who had the winning picture, please email me and let me know who you are. Because let me see. Well, where is it? I'm looking for it now because try and see if I can figure out which person it is. Oh, the internet's being slow. There we go. See if I can find it. Anyway, you know who you are. Email me and let me know that you are the owner of that picture. All right, so I guess until next month. Oh, so it's Carrie. All right, great. So we know who to credit when we put it up in the museum. And the museum is going to open soon if you want to start to visit. You have to make reservations online, which is something new, but feel free to sign up and come visit. I think for month of May, it's our members only, and then after that, it's open to the general public. All right, well, thanks for participating, everybody, and get out there and get some pictures of birds.